I don't know if you noticed, but there were a couple of times during the service where I neglected to announce the page number that we were on, and things seem to have gone just fine. You found the pages okay. Unfortunately, those 3-page announcements have made us about 15 minutes early. So Laura has agreed to speak for another 15 minutes so that the kiddush will be defrosted by the time we get there. Laura Musikant-Weiser is our speaker today. She and her husband have been members of Temple Emunah since 1988. They joined the synagogue as soon as they arrived in the area after Laura completed her 2-year National Health Service commitment in rural Virginia. She's a retired adolescent. She's not a retired child. There's a comma there, and it's part of, okay. She's a retired child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, and spent about 40 years in community mental health. While trying to figure out what she'll do when she grows up, Laura enjoys the outdoors, learning to play mahjong, taking Spanish classes, and listening to Jewish study podcasts and webinars. Their children live in Brooklyn and the San Francisco Bay Area. And most of all, she loves visiting with her 1-year-old twin grandsons in person and on FaceTime. And she will be speaking about the closing moments of the wilderness journey and Moses' last-minute surprises.
They got to be right in my face. Okay. Does everybody hear me? Yeah, good. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. And the title of my talk is, Are We There Yet? Each week, Neil and I listen to multiple Divrei Torah regarding the Parsha HaShavua. What amazes me every week is how each discussion focuses on a different aspect of the Parsha and is approached from a different vantage point. Yet, in the end, what these discussions have in common is a relevancy to my modern sensibilities. Frequently, I listen and think to myself, wow, I never noticed that before, or I never thought about that before. Indeed, there are 70 faces of Torah. As it was with my process of writing this devar over the last few weeks, I continually changed my focus and approach to thinking about the last few parshiot of Bamidbar. Ultimately, thanks to a YouTube video on aleph-beta.org, an online Torah study library founded by Rabbi David Foreman, I came across a very compelling video about Matot Maseh entitled The Art of Negotiation. So the answer to, are we there yet? Is no, but the land is in sight. Let me set the scene. It's in the last year of the Israelites' journey through the desert, and they have conquered the lands on the east side of the Jordan River. The Reubenites and the Gadites owned cattle in great numbers and thought they would prosper if they remained on the fertile land on the east side. They came, in Hebrew, vayavo'u, to Moshe, Eleazar the high priest, and the chieftains, and requested that they be allowed to settle east of the Jordan. Moshe's initial response was quite negative. He was worried about 2 big things. One, why should the Reubenites and Gadites stay here while their brothers go to war across the river? And 2, Moshe remembered the fiasco of the spies of the previous generation and how they struck fear in the hearts of the Israelites and their negative report. He could only imagine that the second generation also might be stuck wandering the desert for another 40 years if the other tribes were to follow the Reubenites and Gadites and not cross to the promised land. At that point, listening to what Moshe had to say and understanding where Moshe was coming from, the Reubenites and Gadites reapproached him, in Hebrew, vayigshu, in a closer, more personal way. As you may recall, back in Genesis, Parsha Vayigash, when the brothers and Joseph had their reconciliation, we also see this verb, implying a more intimate and empathic moment. The spokesman for Reuben and Gad promised that they would go to battle with their brothers, fight in the front lines, and stay there on the west of the Jordan until all the Israelites were settled and in possession of their portions of their land. In return, the Reubenites and Gadites hoped they would be allowed to settle on the east side of the Jordan. Moshe reviewed the agreement. The Torah states, "If you do as you say you will, you shall be clear before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your holding under the Lord. But if you not do so, you will have sinned against the Lord." Numbers 32, verses 22 to 23. The agreement between Moshe and the two tribes was based on a relationship built on trust and faith. The two tribes made a commitment. They took an oath before Moshe and God. Now, let's look at the story about the daughters of Zelophehad. The last verses of Maseh, which end the book of Bamidbar, bring us back to the daughters of Zelophehad from the tribe of Manasseh. They are first mentioned in Parshat Pinchas as part of the census taken for the purpose of dividing the promised land among the tribal clans. Now, Zelophehad, son of Hefer, had no sons, only daughters. The names of Zelophehad's daughters were Machlah, Noah, Haglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. In Bava Batra 119b of the Talmud, it states, "The sages taught, the daughters of Zelophehad are wise. They are interpreters of verses, and they are righteous." They were wise in that they knew the proper moment to bring up the matter of inheriting their father's land. The daughters believed that they had a just case to inherit their father's allotment of land since he had no sons. They had a true love for the land and wanted a share in it. They appreciated the legacy they were inheriting through their tribal namesake, Manasseh, from his father Joseph, and wished to pass that on to their descendants. In Pinchas chapter 27, it states, "Vatikravna benot Zelophehad," the daughters drew near and stood before Moshe, Eleazar the priest, the chieftains, and the whole assembly at the tent of meeting. The daughters courageously laid out their case very clearly and succinctly. 1, our father died in the wilderness. 2, he was not one of the faction of Korach, which banded together against the Lord. 3, he died for his own sins. 4, he has left no sons. 5, let not our father's name be lost to his clan just because he had no son. Give us a holding among our father's kinsmen. It strikes me that the daughters anticipated Moshe's reaction to something new and unanticipated. The daughters wanted to be sure they had a piece of the promised land that they loved. They wanted to be able to pass on their faith and inheritance to their descendants. They were not being rebellious like Korach, and their gain wouldn't be at the expense of the other tribes. The daughters' behavior would not discourage anyone from sticking with the mission of settling in the promised land. Moshe brought their case to the Lord. Vayakrev Moshe at Mishpatan Lifnei Adonai. Moshe approached or drew near to God with the same intention and respect that the daughters approached him. We see the same verb, lihit karev, to draw near or come close. Moshe understood that they had a sound, just argument. God agreed and told Moses to give them a hereditary holding among their father's kinsmen, transfer their father's share to them. According to the commentary in the Eitz Chaim, God honored the daughters for their faith in the land by arranging for them to cause a law to be added to the Torah. Finally, and no, we're not there yet. At the very end of Bamidbar, in Maseh chapter 36, the family heads of the daughters' clan came forward and appealed to Moshe and the chieftains. The Hebrew word used for the family heads coming forward, vayikrevu, is from the same root, to draw near. Remember, we saw this verb when the daughters approached Moshe and when Moshe approached God on their behalf. The family heads also had a legitimate concern that if the daughters were to marry outside the tribe, they, the family heads, would lose that part of their allotted portion. They approached Moshe with the same respect and humility as the daughters did. Once again, God found their complaint justified, and God commanded that all the heiresses may marry anyone they wish, provided they marry into a clan of their father's tribe. As stated in Parsha Maseh, the daughters of Zelophehad did as the Lord had commanded Moses. Machla, Tirzah, Hagla, Milcah, and Noah, Zelophehad's daughters, were married to sons of their uncles, marrying into clans of descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph. And so their share remained in the tribe of their father's clan. These courageous and righteous women are mentioned by name multiple times because of their solidarity with each other and their willingness to follow God's command. Their love of the legacy that they were inheriting, their wish to preserve it and pass it on to their descendants, make them a model for a united people who would remain loyal to God as they journeyed into the Promised Land. In her shiur this week, Dr. Tanya White, a Sachs scholar from the London School of Jewish Studies, highlighted the importance of interacting with respect, empathy, and intention to truly see the other. Yehuda Amichai's poem, The Place Where We Are Right, written in 1965, explores the idea of conflict and its consequences. From The Place Where We Are Right, by Yehuda Amichai, translated by Stephen Mitchell. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. When we relate to each other, panim el panim, face to face, God is there between us. And you actually gave me a great opening for my last part of my devar, which is, and now I want to tell you a joke. That was one of my mother's favorites. There's a well-known story about a rabbi who was called upon to settle a dispute between two of his followers. The first man poured out his complaints to the rabbi, and when he finished, the rabbi said, "You're right." Then it was the second one's turn. When he finished, the rabbi said, "You're also right." The rabbi's wife, who had been listening to the conversation, said incredulously to her husband, "What do you mean you're also right? They can't both be right." The rabbi thought for a few moments and then replied, "You know, you're also right." Shabbat shalom.